A new age of exploration, Captain Zethkree said thoughtfully. Not to conquer or exploit, but to learn and cooperate. The Keth Mori have shown us that there are many ways to be advanced, Jake explained. Some civilizations might have technologies we can't even imagine, hidden on worlds we've dismissed as primitive. Later that night, as the guests gradually departed and the forest settled into peaceful quiet, Jake walked through the village that had become his second home. The glowing plants provided gentle light, and the sound of night creatures created a natural symphony. Shantok joined him near the river where Jake had first learned to catch fish with his bare hands. "Do you ever regret that your friends did not find you sooner?" the elder asked. Jake considered the question seriously. His life had taken a completely different path because of that failed search. Instead of Kantin, the holographic message appeared without warning in the United Nations Assembly Hall. Blue light flickered and formed the shape of a tall, thin creature with silver skin and 4 arms. Its voice echoed through the silent chamber like metal scraping. "Against stone! Greetings, humans of Earth! I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthan Empire. We invite your species to participate in the greatest competition in the galaxy." The world leaders sat frozen in their chairs. First contact with aliens was happening on live television. News channels across Earth stopped their regular programming. People gathered around screens in homes, offices, and public squares. Every 5 years, 100 species compete in the Galactic Survival Championship, the alien continued. The location is Kithara Prime, a world where only the strongest survive. Your species has been selected as contestants. President Martinez of the United States leaned forward. "What kind of competition?" The alien's large black eyes seemed to focus on him. "A test of pure survival ability. No advanced technology is permitted, no energy weapons, no spacecraft, no computers, no communication devices, only primitive tools and your natural abilities." Murmurs filled the assembly hall. The Secretary General raised her hand. "Why these restrictions?" "To ensure fairness," Zethkar replied. "Advanced civilizations become soft and dependent on their machines. This competition tests what truly matters: the ability to survive with nothing but your hands and basic tools." The hologram shifted, showing images of a harsh planet. Dense forests stretched across continents. Volcanoes spewed lava into red skies. Strange creatures with too many teeth prowled through twisted trees. "Kithara Prime will challenge every aspect of your survival instincts. Food is scarce. Water must be found and purified. Shelter must be built. Predators hunt constantly, Doctor." Rachel Kim, Earth's lead xenobiologist, stood up. "How many species typically survive?" "Usually 30 to 40 make it to the end," the alien said with what might have been a smile. "The weak are eliminated quickly. The strong endure." "And if we refuse?" asked the Russian representative. Zethkar's expression darkened. "Refusal would indicate that humans are too primitive for galactic society. You would remain isolated on your small world forever." The threat was clear: participate or be cut off from the wider universe. Earth had been trying to contact alien civilizations for decades. Now they were being offered membership, but at a price. "We need time to consider," President Martinez said. "You have one of your days," Zethkar replied. "Select 12 representatives. They will compete for the honor of your entire species." The hologram faded, leaving the assembly hall in stunned silence. 24 hours later, Earth's decision was made. The selection process moved quickly. Military experts recommended candidates with diverse survival skills. Jake Morrison topped. The List, a former park ranger who had spent years in the wilderness. He could start fires in any weather, track animals, and find water in deserts. Lisa Carter came next. The mechanical engineer had won survival competitions across 3 continents. She could build tools from scraps and solve problems under pressure. Her hands could shape metal, wood, and stone into whatever was needed. Pete Rodriguez brought a lifetime of outdoor experience. He had guided expeditions through jungles, mountains, and frozen tundra. Plants and animals spoke to him like old friends. He could spot danger from miles away and find food where others saw only rocks and dirt. Amy Johnson added medical knowledge to the team. The field medic had treated injuries in war zones and natural disasters. She knew which plants could heal and which could kill. Her steady hands could perform surgery with primitive tools if needed. Carlos Wright provided tactical expertise. The former Marine had survived in every climate on Earth. He understood combat, strategy, and how to lead people through impossible situations. His training covered everything from hand-to-hand fighting to psychological warfare. 7 more team members filled out the roster. Each brought unique skills: hunting, fishing, navigation, crafting, farming, and weather prediction. Together, they represented humanity's best chance at survival. The team gathered at a secret military facility for briefing. General Morrison, Jake's uncle, addressed them in a windowless conference room. The aliens think this will be easy. They believe humans are weak because we use technology. What do we know about the other species? Lisa asked. Very little, the general admitted. Intelligence suggests most alien civilizations are thousands of years ahead of us technologically. They've probably forgotten how to survive without machines. Jake studied the planetary data on his tablet. Looks like Earth, but meaner. Those predators are 3 times the size of our biggest cats. The climate shifts rapidly, Pete added. Temperature swings of 40 degrees in a single day. That'll kill you faster than any animal. Amy examined the biological scans. Unknown diseases, poisonous plants, contaminated water sources. We'll need to be extremely careful about what we eat and drink. Carlos pointed to the terrain maps. Defensive positions will be crucial. High ground, water access, escape routes. We can't just wander around hoping for the best. The training began immediately. The team practiced primitive fire-making until they could produce flames in seconds. They crafted spears, knives, and traps using only basic metal tools. They learned to purify water without filters and identify safe foods without chemical tests. Remember, Jake told his team on their final day of preparation, the aliens banned technology because they think it makes things fair. But we never forgot how to survive without it. Every summer camp, every hiking trip, every weekend in the woods, that's our advantage. The transport ship arrived exactly when promised. It looked like a massive silver egg floating above the Pacific Ocean. The human team boarded using a beam of light that lifted them gently from the deck of an aircraft carrier. Inside, they met their alien escorts for the first time. The crew, members were tall and thin like Zethkar, but with green skin instead of silver. They spoke through translation devices that turned their clicks and whistles into English. You will be given basic supplies upon arrival, one alien explained. Metal tools, rope, and food for 3 days. After that, you must provide for yourselves. What about the other teams? Carlos asked. They are already aboard. 99 species total, including humans. Each team has 12 members. The ship's interior was sterile and bright. Humans were kept separate from other contestants, but glimpses through doorways revealed incredible diversity. Some aliens looked like walking crystals. Others appeared to be made of gas held together by energy fields. A few resembled Earth animals, but with extra limbs or impossible colors. As the ship traveled through space toward Cathara Prime, Jake gathered his team for one final meeting. "They're watching us," he said quietly, "betting on how quickly we'll die. Let's show them what humans can do." The drop pods screamed through Cathara Prime's atmosphere like falling meteors. Jake felt his stomach press against his spine as the emergency thrusters fired. Through the small window, he watched the alien world grow larger. Endless green forests, broken by smoking volcanoes and winding rivers. His pod hit the ground with a bone-jarring crash. The door hissed open, releasing him into thick, humid air that smelled like sulfur and rotting plants. Around him, 11 other pods had landed in a rough circle. His team emerged one by one, checking themselves for injuries. "Everyone okay?" Jake called out. "Bruised but breathing," Lisa replied, stretching her back. Amy was already examining the supply crates that had landed with them. Basic metal tools like they promised. Knives, axes, hammers, coiled rope, about 50 feet. Food bars that taste like cardboard. Pete scanned the surrounding forest. Massive trees with black bark rose 200 feet overhead. Their leaves were dark purple instead of green. Strange sounds echoed from the shadows. Clicks, growls, and something that might have been singing. "We're not alone," Carlos said, pointing upward. High above, flying creatures circled like vultures. They had leathery wings and long necks that ended in heads full of sharp teeth. Yellow eyes tracked the humans' movements with obvious hunger. "Flying predators," Pete identified. "They're waiting to see if we're easy prey." Jake grabbed an axe and tested its weight. The metal was good quality, sharp and well-balanced. "First priority is shelter. Second is fire. Third is water." "I saw a stream about half a mile east during the descent," Lisa said. "Clear running water. No obvious contamination." They moved quickly. Within an hour, Jake had selected a campsite on high ground near the stream, but protected by a rocky outcropping. The position offered good visibility and defensive advantages. Pete gathered dry wood and tinder while Jake prepared his fire-starting kit. Flint, steel, and char cloth made from cotton fabric. The aliens had provided primitive tools, but humans had used these exact methods for thousands of years. Spark, flame. Within minutes, smoke rose from their fire pit. Above them, alien observation drones recorded everything. In the Galactic broadcast center, commentators struggled to explain what they were seeing. "The humans have achieved combustion in record time," announced Vextar, a crystalline being whose voice chimed like broken glass. "Our calculations suggested it would take at least 6 hours for any species to master fire-making without technological assistance." His co-host, a gaseous entity called Wisp, pulsed with confusion. Perhaps their equipment was pre-prepared. Surely no sapient species could retain such primitive knowledge after achieving space travel. Back on the planet's surface, Lisa was already crafting improved tools. She used the fire to heat metal, then hammered spear points on flat rocks. Her engineering background translated perfectly to primitive technology. Leverage, angles, and material stress worked the same way whether building starships or Stone Age weapons. Amy identified plants near the stream. Some were clearly poisonous, bright colors and warning smells that every Earth creature learned to avoid. Others showed promise. She tested them carefully, starting with skin contact, then lips, then tiny tastes. Her medical training included field botany and toxicology. Carlos scouted the perimeter, looking for threats and opportunities. He found tracks in the mud near the water. Something large had visited recently, leaving prints the size of dinner plates with claw marks deeper than his fingers. "Big predator," he reported back. "Probably comes to drink at dawn and dusk. We'll need to post guards during those times." Pete had been watching the sky. "Weather's changing. See those clouds? We're going to get rain within 2 hours. Heavy. Rain." The team moved faster. They built a lean-to shelter using fallen branches and broad leaves. Jake showed them how to weave a waterproof roof using techniques he'd learned from Native American guides. The structure could house all 12 team members and protect their fire. As the first drops began to fall, they had secure shelter, burning fire, and treated water boiling in metal containers. Carlos had set up a perimeter alarm system using tripwires and small bells salvaged from their equipment. The rain came in sheets. Lightning split the sky while thunder shook the ground. Through it all, their fire burned bright and their shelter stayed dry. Other teams were not so lucky. 50 miles north, the Nexari team huddled in misery. These crystalline beings could manipulate solid matter through resonance, but only with technological amplifiers. Without their equipment, they couldn't shape stone or metal. They had no fire, no shelter, and no protection from the storm. The Phantom Collective faced different problems. Made of organized gas and energy, they normally inhabited mechanical suits. On Kythera Prime, they could barely maintain physical form. The rain scattered their molecular structure, forcing them to compress into small, dense clouds that barely qualified as conscious. The proud Draconian Empire team sat in a cave, arguing about who should perform manual labor. In their civilization, machines handled all physical work. None of them knew how to start a fire or build shelter. Their scaled skin provided some protection from the cold, but not enough. Meanwhile, the hive clusters couldn't coordinate without their neural network technology. Each insect-like individual acted independently, creating chaos instead of cooperation. They had scattered across several square miles, unable to regroup or share resources. The human team spent the stormy night in relative comfort. They took turns on watch duty, maintaining the fire and checking their perimeter alarms. Jake used the time to plan their next moves. "Tomorrow we need to expand our capabilities," he told the team. "Better weapons, food procurement, and a more permanent base." "I can upgrade these spears significantly," Lisa said, examining her work by firelight. "Heat treatment, better balance, maybe some throwing sticks for ranged weapons." Amy had been studying her plant samples. Found 3 definitely edible species. One has roots that store well. Another produces protein-rich seeds. There's also a vine that makes decent rope when processed correctly. Pete had been listening to the forest sounds. The local wildlife is settling down. They're learning we're not immediate prey. That's good. Means we're projecting strength. Carlos checked his improvised alarm system. No intrusions yet, but those flying predators are still circling. They're patient hunters. As dawn approached, the rain stopped. Steam rose from the wet forest floor. Jake stepped outside their shelter and breathed deeply. The air was clean and fresh, filled with the scent of growing things. Around them, Kythera Prime was waking up. Bird-like creatures called from the treetops. Something large moved through the underbrush, keeping its distance but watching them carefully. Jake smiled. 12 hours on an alien death world, and his team was not just surviving, they were thriving. They had fire, shelter, water, and weapons. They had identified food sources and established defensive positions, Most importantly, they had something the other species seemed to lack, the knowledge and confidence that came from never forgetting how to survive with their own hands. The real competition was just beginning. Dawn brought new challenges and opportunities. Jake woke to find Pete already studying animal tracks near their water source. Fresh prints showed that multiple creatures had visited during the night, but none had approached their camp. "They're curious but cautious," Pete reported. "That's good. We've established ourselves as a potential threat." Lisa was heating metal in their fire, preparing to upgrade their weapons. She had discovered that the alien-provided tools were made from excellent steel that could be reshaped and improved. Her engineering mind saw possibilities everywhere. "I can make better spear points, knife blades, even primitive arrowheads," she explained while hammering hot metal. "The key is understanding stress points and edge geometry." Amy had spent the early morning processing plants she'd identified as safe. Her hands worked steadily, cleaning roots and preparing seeds for storage. "We'll have enough food for 3 days without touching our emergency rations," she announced. Carlos was expanding their defensive perimeter. He had found naturally occurring materials that could be woven into effective barriers. Sharp thorns, flexible vines, and sturdy branches combined into obstacles that would channel any attackers into kill zones. The team worked with quiet efficiency. Each person understood their role and trusted the others completely. No time was wasted on arguments or confusion. By midday, their camp had transformed. What started as a basic survival shelter had become a fortified base. Multiple fire sources provided warmth, light, and tool-making capability. A sophisticated water collection and purification system ensured clean drinking supplies. Food storage areas kept their provisions safe from scavengers. The weapons cache impressed even Carlos. Lisa had crafted spears with fire-hardened points and perfect balance, knives sharp enough to shave with, throwing sticks that could bring down flying prey at 50 yards, a bow and arrows made from local wood and sinew. "Time to test our capabilities," Jake decided. "Pete, show us what's edible in this forest. Lisa, we need to scout for better materials. Carlos, let's see what kind of threats we're facing." They split into teams but stayed within shouting distance. Pete led half the group on, a foraging expedition, teaching them to identify safe plants, locate water sources, and track animal movements. His knowledge seemed instinctive, built from years of experience in Earth's wilderness. Lisa took the rest to survey their surroundings for useful materials. She found clay deposits perfect for making pottery, a grove of trees with wood ideal for construction, stones that could be knapped into cutting tools or used for grinding. "We could build a permanent settlement here," she told Jake. "With proper planning, this location could support a much larger group." Carlos had been observing from high ground. Through improvised binoculars made from salvaged lenses, he watched other team positions. "The aliens are struggling," he reported. Really struggling. 2 miles south, the Nexari team had managed to find shelter in a natural cave, but they had no fire and no tools. Their crystalline bodies were tough, but they couldn't manipulate their environment without technology. They sat motionless, apparently conserving energy. The Phantom Collective had compressed themselves into a single dense cloud, hiding inside a hollow tree. Rain had nearly dispersed them completely. Without their technological suits, they were vulnerable to every environmental change. Most shocking was the Draconian team. These proud warriors sat around their cave entrance, arguing about who should gather wood for a fire they didn't know how to make. Their scaled hides provided natural armor, but their civilization had forgotten all practical skills. They're like children, Carlos observed. Dangerous children with claws and teeth, but still helpless without their machines. The hive clusters were completely scattered. Individual insects wandered aimlessly through the forest, unable to coordinate without their neural network. Some had already died from exposure or predation. Jake felt a mix of surprise and disappointment. He had expected the galaxy's advanced civilizations to present real competition. Instead, they seemed completely unprepared for basic survival challenges. Are we really that unusual? Amy wondered as she processed medicinal plants. Every human culture on Earth maintained some survival knowledge. Even city dwellers learn basic skills in school. Maybe that's exactly what makes us different, Pete suggested. We never completely abandoned our primitive abilities. Summer, camps, hiking trips, survival shows, military training. We kept practicing these skills even after we developed technology. Lisa paused in her metalworking. It's like the difference between knowing how to use a calculator and understanding mathematics. The aliens learned to depend on their tools without maintaining the underlying knowledge. Their conversation was interrupted by screaming from the south. Something had attacked one of the alien teams. Carlos grabbed his spear and binoculars, climbing a tall tree for a better view. "Draconian team is under attack," he called down. "Large predator, maybe the size of a bear, but with 6 legs and armor plating." Jake made a quick decision. "Pack emergency medical supplies. We're going to help them." "Why?" asked one of the younger team members. "They're competition." "Because it's the right thing to do," Jake replied firmly. "And because we need allies, not enemies." The human team moved through the forest like ghosts. Pete led them along game trails, avoiding thick undergrowth and dangerous terrain. They covered 2 miles in 20 minutes without making significant noise. They arrived to find chaos. The Draconian team had taken refuge on top of large boulders, while a massive creature prowled below. The beast looked like a rhinoceros crossed, with a giant lizard, with thick armor plates and wicked claws. Carlos studied the situation quickly. "Classic predator behavior. It's patient. It knows they can't stay up there forever." Jake formulated a plan. "Lisa, Carlos, you're with me. We'll distract it from 3 sides. Pete, Amy, provide support from range. Everyone else stay back unless we call for help." The attack was swift and coordinated. Jake threw his spear at the creature's left flank while Carlos attacked from the right. Lisa came in low, targeting the vulnerable joints between armor plates. The beast turned toward Jake, giving Carlos a perfect shot at its neck. His spear found a gap in the armoring, piercing deep into vital areas. The creature collapsed within seconds. The Draconians climbed down from their refuge, clearly shaken. Their leader, a tall reptilian with golden scales, approached Jake cautiously. "You helped us," he said in heavily accented English. "Why?" "Because you needed help." Jake replied simply. The Draconian looked confused. "But we are competitors, enemies. We're all stranded on the same dangerous planet," Amy said, already treating minor injuries the Draconians had suffered. "Survival is easier when we work together." The aliens exchanged glances. This concept seemed foreign to them. Competition meant elimination of rivals, not cooperation. "We owe you a debt," the Draconian leader finally said. "I am Commander Threshatar. We will remember this." Jake nodded. "Just pay it forward. Help someone else when you get the chance." As the humans prepared to leave, Threshatar called out again. "How did you learn to fight so effectively without weapons technology?" Practice, Carlos answered. Lots and lots of practice. The human team returned to their camp as evening approached. They had demonstrated their capabilities to potential allies and gathered intelligence about the local predators. Most importantly, they had shown that cooperation was possible even in a survival competition. That night, alien observation drones recorded detailed footage of the human base. The galactic audience watched in amazement as Jake's team maintained multiple fires, posted organized guard rotations, and continued improving their equipment. In the broadcast center, commentator Vextar struggled to explain what they were witnessing. The humans have established what can only be described as a thriving settlement. In less than 48 hours, they have achieved levels of organization that most species require weeks to develop. Wisp pulsed with nervous energy. Perhaps we underestimated their technological capabilities? Surely some advanced equipment was smuggled onto the planet. But the monitoring systems confirmed that no banned technology was present. The humans were accomplishing everything through knowledge, skill, and teamwork that seemed to come naturally to their species. Jake sat by the main fire, planning their next moves. Around him, his team worked on various projects: weapon maintenance, food preparation, equipment upgrades. They functioned like a well-oiled machine, each person contributing their expertise to the group's success. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, the humans were warm, fed, armed, and confident. They had turned a hostile alien world into something that felt almost like home. The attack came at dawn on the third day. Pete heard them first, a low rumbling that seemed to come from the ground itself. He rolled out of his sleeping area and grabbed his spear, scanning the forest perimeter. "Movement to the north," he whispered, urgently. "Multiple contacts, large size." Jake was awake instantly. Years of military training had taught him to trust his team's instincts completely. "Everyone up! Combat positions!" The human team moved like clockwork. Carlos took the high ground position they had prepared on the rocky outcropping. Lisa and Amy flanked left and right, using trees for cover. Pete melted into the forest itself, becoming their mobile scout and early warning system. Jake remained at the center, coordinating their defense. Around their camp, the barriers Carlos had constructed would channel any attackers into carefully planned kill zones. The first Ravager emerged from the morning mist, like something from a nightmare. 6 legs carried a muscular body the size of a small car. Its hide was mottled green and brown, perfect camouflage for the forest environment. Yellow eyes gleamed with predatory intelligence above a mouth full of curved fangs. "Pack hunters," Pete's voice came from somewhere in the trees. "Count 5, no, 6 total. They're coordinating their approach." Jake felt his heart rate steady rather than increase. This was what they had prepared for. "Remember the plan. Let them come to us." The Ravagers spread out, attempting to surround the human position. Their pack tactics were sophisticated. Some created distractions, while others sought weak points in the defenses. But Carlos had predicted this strategy and prepared accordingly. The first beast triggered a tripwire trap 50 yards from camp. Sharpened stakes swung down from the trees, striking its shoulder and causing it to roar in pain and anger. The sound echoed through the forest like a war horn. "There's our signal," Jake muttered. He grabbed a burning branch from their fire and hurled it into the prepared tinder they had placed around their perimeter. Flames erupted in a defensive ring, creating barriers the Ravagers would have to cross. The pack leader, larger than the others, charged directly toward Jake's position. It leaped over the fire line with impressive athletic ability, landing just meters from the human camp. Jake was ready. His spear thrust caught the creature in the chest, but the point skittered off armored hide. The Ravager's claws raked toward his face, missing by inches as he rolled aside. Carlos's spear flew from above like a lightning bolt, catching the beast in the neck. The point found the gap between armor plates that Lisa had identified during their reconnaissance. The Ravager collapsed, thrashing briefly before going still. "One down," Carlos called out. Two more Ravagers tried to flank through the eastern approach. Lisa met them with a combination of thrown weapons and fire barriers. Her engineering precision turned simple tools into devastatingly effective weapons. Weighted throwing sticks struck with calculated force, targeting joints and weak points. Amy supported her with medical knowledge turned tactical. She knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage to biological systems. Her throwing knife found the major artery in one beast's neck, dropping it within seconds. Pete seemed to be everywhere at once. He appeared behind one Ravager to hamstring it with his blade, then vanished back into the forest before it could retaliate. His wilderness skills made him nearly invisible, striking from unexpected angles. The remaining Ravagers began to retreat, but Jake made a tactical decision that surprised everyone. "We pursue," he announced. "Don't let them regroup and try again later." "Are you crazy?" shouted one of the younger team members. "We won! Why chase them?" "Because wounded predators are dangerous predators," Carlos explained, understanding Jake's reasoning immediately. "Better to finish this now than face desperate survivors later." The hunt that followed demonstrated the full extent of human capabilities. Pete tracked the fleeing Ravagers through dense forest terrain that would have challenged any Earth-based hunter. The team moved in coordinated formation, using hand signals and years of shared training. They cornered the remaining three Ravagers in a small clearing where the beasts had hoped to make their stand, but the humans had learned from the first encounter. They approached from downwind, used fire to control the battleground, and struck with overwhelming coordination. Lisa's upgraded spears proved devastatingly effective. Carlos demonstrated combat techniques that combined military training with primitive weapons mastery. Amy provided tactical support that turned her medical knowledge into deadly precision. The final Ravager fell within 10 minutes. The pack that had terrorized this part of the forest was eliminated completely. As the humans secured their victory, Pete was already planning the next phase. "We can't waste this meat," he said, examining the fallen predators. 6 Ravagers will feed us for weeks if we process them correctly." Amy nodded. "The hide can be turned into leather for better armor and equipment. Bones can become tools. Nothing gets wasted." Carlos was thinking strategically. "Word of this will spread. Other predators will know this territory is defended. That gives us breathing room to expand operations." Jake looked around at his team. They had just defeated apex predators using nothing but primitive weapons and teamwork. More importantly, they were already planning how to benefit from their success, rather than simply celebrating survival. Miles away, other teams had faced similar attacks with very different results. The Nexari had lost 2 members when Ravagers attacked their cave shelter. Without weapons or fire, they could only hide and hope. 2 of their crystalline forms now lay shattered on the cavern floor. The Phantom Collective had avoided direct confrontation by dispersing into mist, but they couldn't maintain coherence much longer. Each environmental challenge weakened their ability to hold together as conscious entities. The Draconian team had fought bravely but ineffectively. Their natural weapons, claws, and armored hides weren't enough without tactics or coordination. They had driven off their attackers but suffered serious injuries in the process. By evening, the human camp had transformed again. Ravager meat, roasted over multiple fires, filling the air with rich scents. Amy worked on processing medicinal compounds from the creature's organs. Lisa crafted new tools from bones and claws. Carlos had used Ravager hide to improve their armor and equipment. The material was tough, flexible, and provided excellent protection. Combined with human craftsmanship, it created gear that rivaled modern protective equipment. Pete was already planning their next moves. The Ravager territory extends for miles in every direction. With them gone, we can expand our operations significantly. Better hunting grounds, new resources, safer travel. Jake nodded, but his mind was on bigger picture concerns. We need to start thinking about the other teams. Some are struggling badly. Others might become desperate enough to attack us for our supplies. The Draconians seemed grateful for our help, Amy pointed out. Maybe we can build alliances. Or maybe they're planning to stab us in the back, Carlos countered. Gratitude doesn't last long when survival is at stake. As night fell, the alien observation network recorded everything. In broadcast centers across the galaxy, commentators struggled to explain what they were witnessing. The humans have not merely survived, Vextar announced to billions of viewers. They have established dominance over their territory through superior tactics and weapon crafting. Wisp pulsed with confusion. Our biological analysis indicates these creatures should be among the weakest competitors. Their physical capabilities are limited compared to most galactic species. Yet their results speak for themselves, another commentator added. They have achieved in 3 days what most species require weeks to accomplish. The galactic audience was beginning to understand that they had seriously underestimated Earth's representatives. These humans possessed something that advanced civilizations had lost: the fundamental knowledge of how to survive and thrive in hostile environments. Back on Kythera Prime, Jake sat by the fire planning their next moves. Around him, his team maintained their equipment and prepared for tomorrow's challenges. They had plenty of food, strong defenses, and growing confidence. But most importantly, they had proven that human ingenuity and determination could overcome any obstacle. The real competition was just beginning, and Earth's representatives were ready for whatever came next. The galaxy was starting to take notice of humanity's unexpected capabilities. What had begun as entertainment was becoming something much more significant, a demonstration of what made humans truly dangerous in the universe. The galactic reaction was immediate and unprecedented. Within hours of the draconian attack footage being broadcast, emergency council sessions convened on a dozen worlds. What had begun as entertainment was rapidly becoming something much more significant. On the Vorthan homeworld, Ambassador Zethkar stood before the High Council, trying to explain events that challenged everything they believed about civilization and survival. The humans have created an interspecies alliance in less than 1 standard week, he reported to the assembled leaders. They are providing resources, protection, and education to competitors who should be their enemies. Council leader Vythara's 4 arms gestured dismissively. Temporary cooperation born of desperation. When resources become scarce, their alliance will collapse into violence. Respectfully, Council Leader, the evidence suggests otherwise. Zethkar replied carefully. The humans had opportunity to eliminate weakened competitors, but chose to strengthen them instead. They defeated superior warriors in combat, then released them unharmed. the council chamber filled with clicking sounds that indicated deep confusion among the Vorthan leadership. Such behavior violated every principle of galactic survival theory. Perhaps their tactics are more sophisticated than we initially calculated, suggested military advisor Krextos. They may be creating dependent allies to exploit later. Zethkar hesitated before responding. Our behavioral analysts have reviewed all available footage. The humans appear to be acting from genuine altruism rather than calculated manipulation. Silence fell over the chamber. Altruism was a concept that most galactic civilizations had abandoned millennia ago. It was considered a primitive emotion that interfered with logical decision-making. Meanwhile, on Cathara Prime, Jake's expanding community faced new challenges that tested their cooperative principles. The success of their alliance had attracted attention from struggling teams across the continent. A group of desperate void walkers, energy beings who required constant power sources to maintain cohesion, approached the camp in critical condition. Their leader, a flickering form that barely maintained humanoid shape, communicated through translated energy pulses. "Our power reserves are depleted," the being explained. "Without technological recharging, we will dissipate within planetary rotations. We seek assistance." Pete studied the aliens carefully. "They're like living batteries running down, but I don't see how we can help them. We don't have any power generation technology." Amy was already considering possibilities. "What if we don't need technology? Lightning storms are common here. Maybe we can harness natural electrical discharge." Lisa's engineering mind immediately engaged with the problem. A primitive lightning rod system could work. Copper from our equipment, proper grounding, controlled discharge through conductive materials. Jake made the decision quickly. "We try to help them. If we can solve this, we prove that cooperation can overcome any challenge." The next 2 days saw an impressive display of interspecies collaboration. Lisa designed the lightning capture system, while Worker Prime 7 crafted the intricate components needed. The Nexari used their geological knowledge to locate optimal grounding positions. Aquaterra helped with water-based electrical conduction. When the next storm arrived, the improvised system worked perfectly. Lightning strikes were channeled through controlled pathways, providing safe electrical charges that restored the Void Walker's energy reserves. The grateful energy beings proved valuable allies. Their ability to scout vast distances quickly and their knowledge of atmospheric phenomena helped the community prepare for environmental hazards. Word of this latest success spread among the remaining alien teams. The human camp had become legendary, a place where impossible problems found solutions through cooperation and ingenuity. But the most significant development was happening among the galactic audience watching the competition. On the crystal world of Nexar Prime, civilian observers gathered in viewing centers to watch live feeds from Cathara Prime. What they saw challenged fundamental assumptions about survival and civilization. "Look how they share knowledge freely," observed Resonance's singer Tal, a young Nexari who had never seen such behavior. "Each species contributes their strengths to benefit everyone," Elder Crystal Keeper Vox hummed disapprovingly. "Wasteful sentiment. Resources should be hoarded for personal advantage. But their combined capabilities exceed the sum of individual parts," Tal argued. "They achieve more together than any could alone." This debate was being repeated across hundreds of worlds. Younger generations of aliens were questioning the competitive individualism that had dominated galactic culture for millennia. On Cathera Prime, Jake's community continued to grow and evolve. They had rescued survivors from a volcanic eruption, treating severe burns and smoke inhalation using primitive but effective medical techniques. They had guided lost teams to safety during blinding sandstorms. They had shared food during a regional drought that killed plant life across vast areas. Each act of cooperation strengthened the alliance while demonstrating human values to the galactic audience. Jake realized they were no longer just competing for survival. They were modeling a different way of living for the entire galaxy to see. "We're being watched by billions of beings," he told his core team during an evening planning session. "Every decision we make sends a message about what humanity represents." Carlos nodded thoughtfully. "Some of those watchers might be our future allies. Others could become enemies if they see us as a threat to their way of life." "Then we show them we're not interested in conquest," Amy suggested. "We're interested in cooperation." Lisa was working on their latest project, a communications system that would allow scattered alien teams to coordinate rescue efforts. "If we can prove that working together produces better results than fighting, maybe we change how the galaxy thinks about competition." Pete had been listening to reports from their scouts. "We're getting requests for help from teams hundreds of miles away. Word has spread that humans can solve problems other species can't." Jake studied the rough map they had created of team positions across Cathera Prime. Red marks indicated teams in crisis. Yellow marks showed groups that were struggling but stable. Green marks represented successful teams that didn't need assistance. The pattern was telling. Most alien teams clustered in the red and yellow categories. Only the humans and their direct allies showed consistent green status. "We're not just winning a competition," Jake realized. "We're demonstrating that our entire approach to civilization might be superior to theirs." This understanding was spreading among alien observers as well. On the gas giant world of Whisper's Reach, the Phantom Collective's ruling council watched. Their representatives struggle on Cathera Prime while humans thrived. "Perhaps our technological dependence has made us weak," admitted Prime Consciousness Flow State 12. "These humans retain capabilities we have forgotten. They're primitive. Methods should be inferior to our advanced systems," argued another council member. "Yet they achieve superior results." "What if primitive and advanced are not opposites?" suggested a younger consciousness. "What if they are complementary aspects of complete development?" The debate was revolutionary. For millions of years, galactic civilizations had measured progress by how far they moved beyond their primitive origins. Humans suggested that progress might mean integrating primitive and advanced capabilities rather than abandoning one for the other. Back on Cathera Prime, Jake's community prepared for the competition's final phase. They had rescued 37 alien survivors from 12 different species. Their alliance controlled territory spanning 300 square miles. They had established trade networks, communication systems, and cooperative governance structures. Most importantly, they had proven that diversity strengthened communities rather than weakening them. Each species contributed unique capabilities that enhanced everyone's survival chances. But Jake knew their greatest challenge lay ahead. The competition's final phase would test not just their survival skills, but their ability to maintain cooperation under ultimate pressure. As night fell over their thriving settlement, he watched aliens and humans working together on shared projects. Nexari provided geological expertise while humans shaped metal tools. Depths dwellers shared aquatic knowledge while voidwalkers scouted for environmental hazards. The Hive Cluster individual created intricate crafts while humans provided organizational leadership. They had built something unprecedented in galactic history, a truly cooperative interspecies community based on mutual respect and shared benefit. Tomorrow would determine if their model could survive when tested by the planet's ultimate challenge. But tonight, Jake felt confident that humanity had already changed the galaxy forever. The competition had become something much more significant than anyone had anticipated. It was becoming a demonstration of what galactic civilization could become if species chose cooperation over competition, integration over isolation, and mutual support over individual advantage. The universe was watching and slowly beginning to understand that humanity offered something precious that had been lost among the stars. The knowledge that survival was not about being the strongest, but about being the most united. The ground began shaking at dawn on the 10th day. What started as gentle tremors quickly escalated into violent earthquakes that split the forest floor and toppled ancient trees. Jake's community had barely enough time to secure their equipment before the first major shockwave hit. "Everyone to open ground!" Carlos shouted over the rumbling. Years of military experience in disaster zones told him that being caught under falling debris meant certain death. The interspecies alliance moved with practiced coordination. Humans helped slower-moving Nexari reach safety while Voidwalkers scouted ahead for stable terrain. Depths dwellers carried injured team members, while the Hive cluster individual used its superior reflexes to guide everyone around collapsing structures. Within minutes, their carefully built settlement was reduced to rubble. 10 days of construction and improvement destroyed in moments by planetary forces beyond any species' control. Pete studied the destruction with growing concern. This isn't random seismic activity. The patterns are too organized, too widespread. Something is causing this deliberately. His assessment proved correct when the first environmental disaster struck. Toxic gas clouds erupted from newly opened fissures in the ground, releasing yellow-green vapors that burned lungs and eyes. The deadly fog spread rapidly, carried by shifting wind patterns that seemed designed to maximize coverage. Amy immediately began organizing medical response. Cover nose and mouth with cloth. Stay low to the ground. Move perpendicular to wind direction. But even as they followed her instructions, worse news arrived from their scouts. Worker Prime 7 returned from a reconnaissance mission with information that chilled everyone. Volcanic activity increasing across 3 continental zones, the insectoid reported through rapid clicking. Lava flows redirecting toward populated areas, atmospheric conditions deteriorating rapidly. Lisa studied the data carefully. This isn't natural. The timing is too perfect, the targeting too precise. Someone is controlling these disasters. Jake gathered the Alliance leadership for emergency planning. Representatives from 6 species crowded into their makeshift command shelter while the planet convulsed around them. The competition organizers are escalating the challenge, he concluded. They want to see how we handle ultimate pressure. Aquaterra's gills fluttered with stress. Our people cannot survive prolonged exposure to toxic atmospheres. Depths dweller physiology requires clean air and water. The Nexari hummed in harmonic distress. Seismic activity disrupts our harmonic coherence. We become disoriented, unable to function effectively. One of the Voidwalkers flickered weakly. Atmospheric electrical changes interfere with our energy matrix. We are losing cohesion faster than normal. Jake looked around at his allies, beings from across the galaxy who had learned to work together despite their vast differences. The easy phase of their cooperation was ending. Now, they faced the ultimate test of whether their alliance could survive when everyone's life was at stake. "We don't abandon anyone," he said firmly. "We adapt our strategies to protect everyone's weaknesses while maximizing everyone's strengths." The evacuation began immediately. But instead of every species fleeing separately, Jake organized a coordinated movement that treated the entire alliance as a single unit. Faster-moving species scouted ahead while stronger ones carried supplies and assisted the injured. Pete led the navigation effort, using his wilderness expertise to find safe routes through increasingly dangerous terrain. But he wasn't working alone. Voidwalker scouts provided aerial reconnaissance, while Nexari geological knowledge identified stable ground. The toxic gas clouds forced them to develop new tactics. Amy's medical knowledge combined with alien biological expertise to create improvised protection. Depths Dweller understanding of water filtration helped purify breathing air. Hive cluster precision crafting produced effective masks from available materials. As they traveled, reports reached them of other teams' fates. Most alien groups had scattered when the disasters began, each species trying to save itself independently. Without cooperation, they lacked the diverse capabilities needed to handle multiple simultaneous threats. The proud Draconian team had refused evacuation entirely, believing their superior strength could overcome any environmental challenge. Reports suggested they had been caught in a lava flow while trying to establish a defensive position in the mountains. Other species had simply given up. The technological dependence that made them helpless in primitive conditions also left them. Paralyzed when faced with large-scale disaster, they waited for rescue that would never come. But Jake's alliance kept moving, adapting, and surviving. When poisonous plants blocked their path, alien botanical knowledge identified safe alternatives. When unstable ground threatened collapse, engineering expertise found structural solutions. When exhaustion threatened to separate the group, shared. Determination kept everyone together. The greatest test came when they encountered the source of Cathara Prime's escalating disasters. The world render was awakening. Carlos saw it first through his improvised binoculars. A mountain-sized creature rising from what they had thought was a dormant volcano. The being was so large that its movements caused continental earthquakes. Its breathing released toxic gases into the atmosphere. Its heartbeat triggered seismic waves that reshaped the landscape. It's not just a creature, Lisa realized after studying the phenomenon. It's part of the planet's ecosystem. Maybe the planet itself achieving consciousness. Pete nodded grimly. And we've been living on its back for 10 days without realizing it. The world render's awakening explained everything. The environmental disasters weren't random or artificially created. They were the natural result of a planetary being stirring to consciousness after eons of slumber. Other surviving teams across Cathara Prime were responding with predictable tactics. The few remaining military-focused groups tried to attack the creature directly, launching desperate assaults that accomplished nothing against something the size of a continent. Scientific teams attempted to study the phenomenon, hoping to find technological solutions to a problem that transcended technology. Their equipment was useless against forces that operated on geological timescales. Religious groups prayed to their various deities, seeking divine intervention in a situation that required practical action. But Jake's alliance took a different approach entirely. Instead of fighting the world render or trying to control it, they studied its behavior patterns and learned to work with it. "It's not hostile," Amy observed after hours of careful observation. "It's just awakening, like any creature that's been asleep for a long time. Pete had identified the pattern. It's stretching, adjusting position, trying to get comfortable. The disasters are side effects, not intentional attacks. Lisa began developing a radical strategy. What if we don't try to stop it? What if we help it wake up safely? The idea seemed insane, but Jake recognized the logic. Fighting something that large was impossible. Hiding from it was temporary at best. But cooperation, the strategy that had worked with every other challenge they faced, might succeed where force and fear failed. The plan they developed was unprecedented in galactic history. Instead of treating the world render as an enemy to defeat or a disaster to escape, they approached it as a patient that needed medical assistance. Amy applied her medical knowledge to planetary-scale biology. The world render was experiencing something like muscle cramps after eons of immobility. Its discomfort caused the seismic activity that threatened everyone on the planet's surface. Working together, the Alliance developed a solution that combined multiple species' expertise. Nexari geological knowledge identified pressure points where careful intervention could relieve the creature's discomfort. Voidwalker energy manipulation helped guide natural electrical flows that served as the world render's nervous system. Human. Organizational skills coordinated the effort while alien capabilities provided the tools needed for planetary-scale medicine. The result was unprecedented cooperation between multiple species and a planetary consciousness. Instead of destruction, they achieved mutual understanding. Instead of conquest, they accomplished healing. As the world render settled into comfortable wakefulness, the environmental disasters ceased. Toxic gas emissions stopped as the creature learned to breathe without poisoning its surface ecosystem. Seismic activity calmed as muscular tension released safely. The planetary being even began to communicate, using geological formations to create symbols that the Alliance's diverse linguistic knowledge could interpret. "Thank you," the message spelled out across miles of carefully shaped terrain. Long sleep brought great stiffness. Your assistance brings comfort. Jake stood with his allies on a cliff overlooking the transformed landscape. Below them, the world render's massive form stretched across continents, but its movements were now gentle and controlled. The Deathworld had become a place of unprecedented cooperation between species and planetary consciousness. "We didn't conquer anything," he reflected. "We just learned to understand it." Aquitra's gills fluttered with amazement. "Your species approaches problems unlike any we have known. Where others see enemies, you seek partners." Worker Prime. 7 clicked, in agreement. The collective consciousness. The formal competition ended not with combat or elimination, but with something unprecedented in galactic history. As the sun rose on the 15th day, Jake's alliance had not only survived but transformed Kithara Prime into a thriving interspecies community. 63 alien survivors from 18 different species lived and worked together in settlements that dotted the continent. They had established trade networks, communication systems, and cooperative governance structures that allowed radically different beings to coexist peacefully. Most remarkably, they had achieved harmony with the world render itself. The planetary consciousness had become an active participant in their civilization, using its geological abilities to create infrastructure and resources that benefited everyone. Ambassador Zeth Kar's transport ship descended from orbit to collect the competitors. But what he found defied every expectation the Galactic Council had established. "This cannot be accurate," he muttered, studying the sensor readings. The reports indicate a functioning civilization with complex infrastructure and resource distribution networks. His aide, a younger Vorthon diplomat, pointed to the visual displays. Ambassador, the humans have built what appears to be cities. The transport landed in the central settlement, where Jake waited with representatives from every surviving species. The delegation that greeted Zethkar included beings who had been enemies at the competition's start, but now stood together as allies. Ambassador, Jake said formally, we're ready to conclude the competition, but we have a proposal to present to the Galactic Council. Zethkar's 4 arms gestured in confusion. The competition is concluded. You have achieved victory through methods we do not understand. But what proposal could you possibly— We want to stay, interrupted Aquaterra, speaking for the Depths dwellers. We want to continue building what we've started here. Worker Prime 7 clicked in agreement. The collective consciousness has learned more about cooperation in 15 days than in 15 centuries of isolation. We request permission to establish permanent settlement. The Nexari hummed in harmonic unity. Our species offers geological expertise to support continued civilization development. We wish to remain as founding members of this alliance. Zethkar stared at the assembled beings in complete bewilderment. You are requesting to abandon your homeworlds to live on a primitive death world? This world isn't primitive anymore, Lisa said, gesturing toward the sophisticated infrastructure they had built. And it's not a death world when people work together instead of fighting each other. Jake stepped forward to address the ambassador directly. We've proven that cooperation produces better results than competition. We want to establish a permanent settlement here as an example for the galaxy, a place where any species can come to learn how to work together. The World Render has agreed to support our efforts, Pete added. It enjoys having diverse life forms on its surface. We're like beneficial bacteria that help keep a larger organism healthy. Zethkar's confusion deepened. You are speaking of the planetary consciousness as if it were a person. Because it is a person, Amy explained. Just a very large one. We've learned to communicate with it through geological formations and seismic patterns. It's been lonely for millions of years, and it likes having company. The ambassador activated his communication system to contact the Galactic Council directly. The conversation that followed would reshape interstellar civilization. Council Leader Vithara, he reported, the competition results require immediate council review. The humans have not merely survived, they have established a functioning interspecies civilization. The council leader's response crackled through. The communicator. Explain the meaning of interspecies civilization, Ambassador. 18 different species living and working together cooperatively. They have shared resources, joint governance, and mutual defense agreements. They have achieved in 15 days what our theorists believed would require centuries of careful diplomatic development. Silence filled the communication channel for long moments. When Vithara spoke again, her voice carried tones of disbelief and concern. Are you suggesting that humans have somehow conquered multiple alien species? Not conquered, Zethkar replied carefully. Befriended. The other species have chosen to ally with humans voluntarily. They report improved survival capabilities and quality of life through cooperation. Carlos had been listening to the exchange with growing understanding. They can't comprehend what we've accomplished, he told Jake quietly. Their entire civilization is based on competition and domination. Voluntary cooperation is literally impossible for them to understand. Jake nodded, realizing that their greatest challenge wasn't surviving on Cathara Prime. It was convincing the galaxy that cooperation was possible. "Ambassador," he said, "we'd like to invite the Galactic Council to send representatives here. Let them see what we've built and how it works." "The Council will never agree to that," Zethkar replied automatically. "Council members do not visit primitive worlds." "Then invite young members of their species," Amy suggested. "People who are curious about new possibilities." The idea sparked something unexpected in Zethkar's expression. His own nephew, a young diplomat who constantly questioned traditional approaches, would be fascinated by what he was witnessing. Over the following days, as word spread throughout galactic civilization, the impossible began to happen. Despite official governmental disapproval, young beings from dozens of species requested permission to visit Cathara Prime. The first group arrived within a month, 23 individuals representing 12 species, all curious about the rumored cooperation civilization that humans had established. What they found exceeded every expectation. The settlements had grown into genuine cities with sophisticated infrastructure. But more importantly, they witnessed daily cooperation between species that had been enemies for millennia. Young Nexari worked alongside Phantom Collective members on engineering projects. Depths dwellers shared aquatic farming techniques with land-based species. Hive cluster individuals taught precision crafting to anyone interested in learning. Most shocking of all, humans served as teachers and coordinators rather than rulers. They had established a civilization where leadership was based on expertise rather than strength, where decisions were made through consensus rather than force. "How is this possible?" asked Clytheris, a young draconian who had come seeking adventure but found something much more significant. "Our species have been at war for centuries. Yet here, Nexari and Phantom Collective work together on the same projects." Jake showed her the fundamental principle that made everything work. When survival depends on cooperation, old enemies become new allies. We focus on what we can accomplish together, rather than what divides us. The young visitors stayed. For months, learning not just practical cooperation techniques, but entirely new ways of thinking about civilization itself. When they returned to their homeworlds, they carried with them seeds of revolution. Across the galaxy, younger generations began questioning the competitive individualism that had dominated galactic culture for millennia. They organized study, groups, shared research, and proposed cooperative projects that horrified their traditional governments. On the Vorthon homeworld, Zethkar's nephew led a movement to establish exchange programs with the Cathara Prime settlements. On Nexar Prime, young crystalline beings created resonance networks to share knowledge rather than hoard it. Among the Phantom Collective, new consciousness streams formed around cooperative rather than competitive principles. The change was gradual, but inexorable. Each returning visitor became a catalyst for transformation in their home civilization. What humans had demonstrated on Cathara Prime, that cooperation produced better results than competition, began spreading across the galaxy like a beneficial infection. 5 years later, Ambassador Zethkar stood before the Galactic Council for what would be his final report as an official representative of competitive civilization. "The humans have fundamentally altered galactic development patterns," he announced to the assembled leaders. 37 worlds have requested establishment of cooperative settlements based on the Cathara Prime model. Interspecies trade has increased by 4,000%. Military conflicts have decreased to their lowest levels in recorded history. Council leader Vithara's response was predictably negative. These developments threaten the natural order of galactic civilization. Competition drives innovation and strength. Cooperation breeds weakness and stagnation. Respectfully, Council leader, the evidence suggests the opposite, Zethkar replied. Cooperative settlements consistently outperform competitive ones in technological development, resource efficiency, and quality of life measurements. He paused, then added the statement that would end his diplomatic career but begin something much more important. I am resigning my position to accept an offer to help establish a new cooperative settlement in the Andromeda sector. My nephew and 43 other young Vorthans will be joining the expedition. The council chamber erupted in shocked silence. A senior ambassador, abandoning his position to participate in human-inspired cooperation, was unprecedented. But Zethkar was not alone. Similar resignations occurred across the galaxy as established leaders left traditional positions to help build something new.